Welcome to the Story Tinker Podcast, a place for in-depth analysis of webtoon stories. Co-hosted by sharp, witty, and dare I say thirsty fans, we dive deep into every episode, analyzing character struggles, relationship development, and of course, theories. You can follow the Story Tinker on YouTube, podcast platforms, and social media. For bonus content, sneak peeks, and more, you can support the Story Tinker on Patreon. We are really appreciative of your likes, subscribes, and follows on all platforms. Thank you for listening to the Story Tinker, and let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 49 of the Purple Hyacinth podcast on the Story Tinker. And today we are with Laura and Fwoot.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. And this, if anybody does not know, 49 is the season finale. So technically the 50th episode because we have the prologue, episode 0. So it is a long and exciting episode. So where we left off last time is where Laura, I'm tired. Lauren encountered Tim's sake and was knocked out by Bella and is currently unconscious in an alleyway. Things are looking great for her. So we start out with basically, I guess like a flashback of Lauren standing in front of her murder board, clutching the picture in her hand. And this is the picture that she got from Harry Anslow, the one that she freaked out over. And we see her looking at it. It says November 13th, blank, blank 17. And we see Tim Sake in the car, the guy that she just encountered in the alley, along with another person driving the car.
And can I say, I know we can't have the music on right now, but the music I don't even know if you could call it music, like the ambient sound of when the chapter starts is super unsettling. It fits really well with Lauren's flashback memory, whatever this is.
Yeah, that always enhances it. And it's kind of like a shame that we don't really ever discuss it that much because I guess we just don't. So thank you for bringing that up, Laura. Yeah, sound effects, I guess maybe would be a good word. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this really lovely storytelling device where Lauren is looking out the window and she's seeing her parents and their driver. Now, we know obviously she's not really seeing her parents and the driver, but it's a lovely way of showing us that she's thinking about them and that their memory and the images of them are fresh and present in her mind. And she's able to visualize them. And we see they look rather young. The driver's opening up the door for them. And he says, "At your service, Mr. and Mrs. Sinclair." So we can deduce, by the way, from this that they are wealthy enough, not to own a car, which I don't know the standards of our policy, but like to have a personal driver. So we know already that Lauren is from a wealthy family, and this just serves to reinforce that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Tristan, chief of police, he probably has bank.
Yeah, that's things tend to go together, right? Good jobs, good money, the cycle of good education, knowing the right people in the right places. Yeah, definitely. That is the way of the world in cartoons as well.
Also, I just want to say, Miss Sinclair's really pretty. Like, she looks really good. And like their character designs are really well done. Like you can really see how Lauren would she definitely looks related to them, and she has closer to her father's hair. It's a mix of both her mother's hair and her father's hair. And then she has her mother's eyes.
Yeah. And eyebrows. Yeah, it's kind of sad looking at them. You as the reader, knowing what happened to them, you just had that sadness as soon as you see them. And they don't look sad, they look happy, right? They're looking up at her through the window and they're smiling and they're waving at her, they're waving goodbye. And it's just so poignant because you know what's going to happen to them and you just see their happy smiling faces. Do they know what's going to happen to them? We don't know, but Lauren certainly doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think it really hits you, but it's heavily implied that this is the last time Lauren ever saw her parents. And so it makes this scene hit a little bit harder because she's reliving that moment where, like, at the time when she was 12, she didn't even realize that, this was goodbye, but now she does.
And now she has a new perspective on it with the information that she got from Sake just a couple minutes ago, that the car was borrowed from a random rich family. That was a lie. And she thinks to herself it wasn't an accident, and she's looking out the window. They were going to die soon anyway. That's the truth. And they're looking up, waving goodbye to her when they're in the car. So we figured they wouldn't miss it. And then she's looking down at them from the window again. Wait. A man with 4 fingers is pretty memorable. Sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say that, like, Lauren, like, here, she might think that she could stop it because she knows now, right? As you were saying, she knows it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and I think it's the symbolism of her looking at them through the window is like pretty heavy. Like the window panes, she looks trapped. Like you can see the different panes of this long, like floor length window, and it kind of looks like she's behind bars, and so she's trapped. She can't go down and save them, and she's yelling, "Mom, Dad!" She's banging on the window, "Get out of the car!" They drive away. "Don't leave!" And she slumps down. "He'll kill you!" And she's trapped by this memory, trapped by her feelings. She just feels very trapped, is what the feeling I get from this.
Oh, that was so well put. That was amazing. Yeah, it's amazing what you can express with the visual medium. You can't express that through the written text. It's something that comes out through, our interpretation of what we see. And it's so sad. This is like we already know how Lauren takes everything personally. The second she heard this information, she puts it on herself and is already like, I should have stopped them. I could have said something. I didn't do anything. I mean, this, not even consciously, but unconsciously, that's how her personality works. It's so sad. Like she's just piling more rocks on her shoulders.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the reason why she crumples in this panel here. And she looks very childlike. Like you can tell this is adult Lauren, but she's in a nightgown. She just looks really helpless and yeah, very, very innocent.
It's probably how she wasn't able to move on from it, like even into adulthood. Because, all of these events happened when she was a child, but, she still can't move on.
Interestingly, we didn't hear until now, we didn't hear about like her guilt about parents, right? Because she didn't know. She thought it was an accident all along. And when you think it's an accident and there's nothing you could have done, or that it was not, human malevolence that caused it, you're like, okay, you accept it. That's life. But the second she hears that it was ill intention, that it didn't have to happen, it happened because people were making bad choices. I feel like I'm an educator with little kids here, but because like they were like, oh, you don't want to say the kid is bad, you say like, oh, you just made a bad choice anyway. So because some people made some bad choices, it's the second she heard that she stops having the peace, whatever peace she had with the parent about her parents dying, it's gone. And we'll see like for the rest of in the future, like of the story, she's going to add this to all the other things that like disturb her peace. And we're going to see that in a second right now too.
And kind of going on with what Fwoot was saying about like not being able to move on. Sometimes when people experience like extreme trauma or like a brain damage or like drug overdose or something, like it kind of stops their development, their mental capacity to mature and grow older. And it kind of seems like in some ways Lauren is still a 12-year-old girl. She has not been able to move on, mature. She's still this traumatized little girl.
I completely agree. I think you're 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
So now we move on to something that is in her present that she has been feeling the weight of. And we see a pair of legs behind her with a long sword dripping blood. Obviously, we know that's Kieran. And Kieran, the hypothetical Kieran standing behind her with blood on his face, and not with such a monstrous expression on his face, interestingly. Like he doesn't have a super scary expression on his face. He says, it's not their deaths you could have prevented. And again, obviously, this is her guilt over what happened in the tower. Very, very fresh in her mind, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that at this point, this is genuinely how she sees Kieran, like, with the blood on his face. And that might actually be his outfit from, that episode. So, yeah, I think mentally this is how she sees Kieran, because this is the image that's stuck in her mind.
And the fact that he shows up, from our perspective, we're looking in through the window, so we still see those bars, those like bar-like imagery. Makes me think that she feels trapped by the pact that she made with him. She feels a little bit trapped by him, and knowing that he knows about her and their involvement together.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could see it another way, where you could see he's also trapped, which we know he's trapped. I don't know if Lauren's thinking about that right this moment, but eventually she'll come to see it too, that he's also trapped by his role in the Phantom Scythe.
Yeah, but this is Lauren's mind, not his. So any symbolism is coming from Lauren's
Right.
perspective.
True. He's also in her home, invading her inner sanctuary. Although, honestly, I don't know how much peace her home actually provides, because she just doesn't seem to be at peace anywhere, really.
Especially not in this next panel when the corpses come for her. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
it's so unsettling.
There's like a million things with murderer, and then all the corpses, standing upright. It's a very gory scene. And yeah, she feels like, and that, there's the prison guards, and she feels like it's all her fault that they died, or at least partially her fault. Yeah, and they're all looking at her, and she says, "No, I didn't know. I didn't mean for anyone to die. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And right before the corpses come in, actually, I skipped. There's a panel where it's just the word murderer over and over again. Murderer, murderer, murderer. Is that what you said? Sorry. And she just like feels, even though she wasn't the one that killed them, Kieran was, she feels responsible for them.
Mm-hmm. And the murder imagery is very similar to the monster line, right? From, the unnamed episode.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I think that we can say they both accept responsibility for what they do. Kieran hides it as well as he can, but it haunts him in his mind all the time. And Lauren also takes guilt, and takes responsibility upon herself. Yeah, I mean, I know it would be pretty hard to be flippant about it, but maybe some other people could shrug it off more easily. Maybe another thing that makes them similar. So to add to this lovely festivity in her nightmare, we now have the word Ren, and it's emphasized, like it's the setting of it is very strong, and we see her pause, and coming through the crowd of prison guards, we see this little boy, right, her little best friend, coming through. He doesn't have a face for a while. He's coming through the wall of black, and he's standing there, and he has a little smile on his face, and he's like, "It's okay, Ren." And now Lauren is on her knees so that she's his height, looking at him, and he says, "I know." He's taking off his hat. The sunbeam or light is shining on him. "I know you never meant to kill me." Oh, and we finally see his face. He's a cute little boy. He has white hair, silvery gray eyes, thick black eyebrows, and he is holding his hat in his hand, the famous hat, the one that she still has on her board. And at this point, Lauren starts crying, like she has tears in her eyes. And I think it's representative of, this is the deepest pain that she carries. Like, she didn't know about her parents' accident, whatever, not accident till a second ago, and the murders are also fresh, but like this is the thing that has been tormenting her for all these years.
And all she can say is Dylan, and you see her lips are trembling. And if you have the sound on, the sound effects, ambiance, like unsettling sounds at the beginning of the chapter stop when Dylan says Ren, and it changes to a solitary piano just playing some chords, and then like that further emphasizes like the word Ren everything changes. All of her attention shifts to Dylan, and she kind of like gets snapped out of her being overwhelmed at the panic of the corpses and the murders. And as she thinks of Dylan, which I think goes along really well with what you were just saying, Mindy, that this is her deepest hurt. Her deepest hurt is like the only thing that could snap her out of that. And it has her sole attention. It's so sad because everything else fades away, which could be symbolic that like she's just focusing on Dylan, but it could also be like she's swallowed up by the darkness because everything else fades to black and it's just her and Dylan. And it kind of looks like they're sitting on like water. Like she's sinking into this despair and like everything else is empty around them. She just like is empty and dark. And this is just like her very core thinking about Dylan. It's so sad.
And we see that, the way that she's framing it, because obviously Dylan is a figment of her imagination. She's framing it that like she killed him. I mean, like which normal person would have like be involved in this giant accident or with a bomb and then think, oh, I killed him. I mean, she carries a ton of guilt. And, we're going to see we're going to relive her experience now and see maybe to understand why she thinks she's at fault. But this is like an extreme burden to be carrying around.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lauren also has her ability, right? So, and her ability gives her access to knowledge that a lot of people don't have. And, while this ability can be seen as a gift, this episode is called Cruel Curse. So, and something that this episode really does is it highlights how, yes, this ability can be a blessing and it can open new doors, new pathways. It also burdens you with knowledge. And I think that's something that's important about PH. And I think that's something that the story is going to cover is what do you choose to do with that knowledge? Do you choose to let it isolate you and burden you for the rest of your life? And do you choose to feel guilty about it and never try to move forward from that information? Or do you try to use that information to actually grow and be better and make yourself a better person and to learn from your mistakes and actually move forward and accept that, yes, while this has happened, I can't do anything about that, but now I do know these things and I can hopefully prevent it from happening again in the future.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I think Lauren is unrealistic maybe about the power that her power gives her, because I think she feels that everything is upon her, when sometimes I think it's too much. She overemphasizes and over relies, and what she can actually accomplish with that. She isn't responsible for everything just because she can detect, knows a little bit more than other people. But that's Lauren. So now we are going to get a full-fledged memory, because we've been, getting bits and pieces of her experience with the ATST and her friendship with Dylan. But now we're going to be, privy to really understanding what happened. And we pivot into this beautiful, blue sky scene and the Allendale train station. So as soon as you see that, blue cherry skies is reminiscent of, most people, if they have a good childhood and not a bad childhood is usually a little more idyllic than adulthood, right? Adulthood comes with responsibilities and more pain and things like that. But when we go to these this cherry blue sky, we go back to her childhood, and seems like a happy time right away. And we see the Allendale train station, and there's a whole bunch of flowers outside. This looks like there's some purple hyacinths because we see little bits of purple. And we see the archway is decorated with flowers as well. And now we have a vision of the clock. It is 7:30, right? If I'm reading correctly. And we see a pickup truck with a lot of flowers in the bed of the truck and some crates with flowers outside. And then we see a man holding, standing by the cartons with a bunch of flowers, and he's holding a carton of flowers. And we see little baby, we know she's 12. So 12-year-old Lauren and Dylan. Dylan is carrying a box of flowers as well with purple hyacinths and some other flowers. And they're playing, they're kind of teasing. She's running after him. He swipes the box away with a little smile. She has this little angry face. And the adult says, "All right, kids, are you ready? We need everything set up before the king arrives." And he smiles. And Lauren says, "Is it true we got to see King Edward, Mr. Rosenthal?" And Dylan says, "Can we stay for the opening ceremony, Dad?" So we now know that this is Dylan's father. And he is a florist, apparently, in charge of putting together the flowers for this grand opening ceremony. And he says, "Of course, I'll even treat you to some cheesecake afterwards for helping," which in my mind, those are pivotal lines. We'll discuss it at the end because it's a truthful statement. And he said, "Don't tell your parents, Ren." And he winks, said, "They'll say I'm spoiling you." So it seems like they have a nice relationship and that he is a good dad. He knows her parents and that they they've been together for a while. And he's like, "All right, now let's get started." And, they're just laughing and running with their boxes of purple hyacinths. And now they have more white flowers and they're running around the train station. And it looks like they're just, this is like the epitome of a peaceful, fun childhood. Kids just having fun, not a care in the world, being cute together. And now we see it's a little bit later. It's already 9:05. So some time has passed. And Lauren, who is spreading her hands out, says, Dylan, tell me about the flowers." And he's like, "Again? You really love flowers, don't you? All right, come here. These are called freesias. They're now in the background and the freesias in the foreground. They symbolize trust and purity." And she's like, "Hey, Dylan, you know a lot about flowers. Do you want to be a gardener like your dad?" And he has this cute like wheat stalk or something in his mouth. And he's like, "I like flowers, but I want to become a doctor." And it's just cute. This is like, again, another way to show the childlike naivete. You always ask kids like, "Oh, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And it kind of reflects like the purity of children, because when you grow up, sometimes you make choices to like go into professions for reasons other than, things that were different when you were a kid, because you have to be practical or whatever, or things happen in life. Point to Exhibit A. But this is like, again, showing what it's like to be a kid and like the idealism of children.
And Lauren thinks this is funny. "Ha, a giant klutz like you," she's chuckling. "You'll kill more patients than you save." And he gets annoyed with this. There's a panel of just his annoyed face. And he said, "Just watch me. I'll be the best doctor the city has ever seen." And he like makes a grand gesture to emphasize his point. And in so doing, he knocks over a pail of flowers. Talk, clang. And she laughs at him some more. "Sure." And he says, "I wasn't lying." So this tells us that, Lauren has told him about her ability and he believes her. And he makes a good point. He wasn't lying. He's been truthful with her.
Yeah. And by the way, the fact that he knocks over the pail of flowers, to me, symbolizes that his dream is not going to come true. It's like, "Oh, I'm going to be the best doctor." And then boom, like there's like a negative thing occurring, the flowers falling out of the pot. Like, I feel like that's a foreboding.
Yeah, definitely. And Lauren laughs at him. "Maybe you should stick to flowers for now." And he says, "Fine. These are gladioluses. They symbolize honor, strength, and remembrance." He's just so annoyed. I think it's interesting what flowers Lauren remembers in this flashback. She remembers him explaining freesias that symbolize trust and purity, and then the gladioluses, which I had never heard of, but apparently they're part of the iris family. I looked it up. And they symbolize honor, strength, and remembrance. And so like all those things are what she remembers about Dylan, him being trustworthy and pure and honorable and strong. And, she remembers him.
a little bit like hyacinths. And he says, but hyacinths are much more interesting. And he sticks, I guess it was a hyacinth at the end, the one that he would have in his mouth. He sticks it in front of her face and he says, they had multiple meanings depending on the color. Like white ones mean sincerity. Do you know what the purple hyacinths mean? Are we about to get a very important concept of the story? And he has this look on his face. It's really cute. He's very attentive to her. And she says, they're the symbol of the royal family, silly, which is hilarious because it's really bringing back, this has been a question that people have been asking throughout the episode, the comic story, where it's like, oh, what is the meaning of the purple hyacinths that Kieran leaves? And everyone's like, oh, they're a symbol of the royal family. Duh, that's all it means. It's just a threat, obviously. Right. So it's funny to see like little child Lauren saying what years later everybody would be saying about Kieran. He says only half right is another meaning too, which is exactly the case. And he wiggles her nose. He says, want to try to guess it? I bet. And she punches him. He's like, hey, careful. Don't tear the hat unless you want to mend it again. I regret ever mending it for you. So we know that she has mended it for him, which isn't just a nice little touch about like their relationship. And he never gets to say what the other meaning of purple hyacinths are. But clearly we as readers are supposed to be looking things up because he is interrupted by an announcement. Due to the opening ceremony for the new railway, departures between 10 and 10:30 a.m. will be delayed. The train scheduled during this time will leave at 10:45 a.m. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. And Lauren and Kieran, Lauren and Dylan, that was not an unintentional reference to the Dylan is Kieran theory. Lauren and Dylan are running around. They're running past these adults, and the adults are having a conversation. They're saying, how exciting. Ah, yes, the new railway. And then we hear one of the adults saying, right, the next train will leave at 10:45. And that is a lie. And Lauren picks up on that. She stops for a second, she looks around, and she just sees a bunch of adults. Like, they're not clear to us. We can analyze them now and see if like there's a lady in pink. Is she a younger lady A? I don't know. There's a couple of guys, right? We don't know who they are. Like, do you think that we can make out any of these people?
I think they're just normal background characters.
Well, one of them is saying a line. I think one of them is supposed to be important to the story. I just think we don't have the details right now to figure out who they are yet. But I do think that
they're
eventually
probably Phantom Scythe member.
What? Yeah.
They're probably Phantom Scythe member, but I'm not sure if they're like outside of that line, they're actually going to be relevant.
Interesting. Oh, it's so funny. I automatically assumed it was going to be a major character, but yeah, it could be either way. I'm thinking maybe it'll be somebody that we know now and that we just don't know that they're in this scene. But yeah, that'd be cool. It's so funny. I kind of assumed everyone thought that, but like here we go. And yeah, we see like this lady in pink. We see two people who we really don't see anything about. One of the guys has a beard. We don't know. Could be anybody. And she's like, huh? And Dylan's like, Ren. And Mr. Rosenthal's like, Dylan, Lauren. He's calling them over. He's like, so kids, you've worked hard. The ceremony starts in half an hour. Why don't you go take this and go to the bakery we passed on the way here? My supervisor wants me to take a look at the inner courtyard garden. So I'll have to stay here. And they're excited. They say, thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Yay, thank you, Dad. Watch the time and be careful. And they run out. Should we discuss all theories like at the end? I think that probably makes more sense.
Sure.
Okay. Because I know that there is a strong theory here. And yeah, okay, so let's do that. And Dylan grabs a bucket of flowers. And as he walks out, he says, Lauren, daisies are your favorite, right? Huh? Yes, why? You'll see. And he's fiddling around with flowers. And she's like, is this another trick of yours? Dylan's like, my dad told me it makes men charming. So cute.
And her retort, that's why your dad is still single, Dylan. Rude.
Right? Okay, so that's interesting. He's single. Something must have happened to Dylan's mom. Yeah. So I wonder if that will, there's kind of a throwaway line. I wonder if that will be more important at some point. What happened to his mom? And then we hear another snippet of conversation, and it's a lie as well. It says, the years to come will be the brightest art Hollis has ever known. And we again have we just have Lorna walking through a crowd. We have no idea who said this. We really don't see anything. We just see a bunch of legs. And Lauren looks around again, and there's just a bunch of people. There's actually the guy with the beard again, but it's not the same guy because the other guy was wearing pink vest and this guy's wearing a purple vest. So just random people. And we hear a rumble, rumble, right? Just people walking around. And he again says, Ren. And then he puts this chain of daisies on her forehead. She's surprised. I think she kind of a little blushing. And he says, beautiful. And he looks at her with this sweetest smile. And he says, the crown, not you. And he's lying because he thinks she's beautiful.
So sweet. Such a sweet memory.
So I think little 12-year-old Dylan has a little crush on his friend, people. Little nascent child crush. It's cute. I'm thinking back to when I was 12. Who did I have a crush on at 12? Oh, obviously the actors in Harry Potter, Rupert Grint and Emma and Daniel Watson. No, sorry. Wow. Daniel Radcliffe mixing up Emma. But yes, I was convinced I was going to marry Daniel.
That's so funny.
Me and millions of other little girls.
And this, going back to Dylan, when his little lie, he knows that she can detect when people lie, and he says it anyway, the crown, not you. And she just looks at him whenever she hears someone lying, it catches her attention. So when she overheard snippets of conversation of someone saying, oh yeah, the train will leave at 10:45, that's a lie. She's like, who said that? Who said that? She's looking around. Didn't know who it was, but here she can just look right at Dylan. And she looks at him and decides not to and she has a little bit of a blush, I guess, as he just stares at her. And she says, teach me how. I want to make one too. Another hat? Okay. And so they're walking down the street together, and he's teaching her how to make a daisy crown. So you tie it off there. And then vroom, a car comes speeding around the corner right at them. Are they on the street? And it looks like they're on the sidewalk. So someone's driving super recklessly. And so Lauren grabs Dylan's arm and moves him out of the way real quick, and they crash into the light pole. Specifically, Lauren's head crashes into the light pole. That would hurt so badly. And the car just screeches off. And the daisy chain is broken. You can see a panel of it in the street. Maybe this is a bit of foreshadowing about what's about to happen.
The sign of his friendship for her is broken, and their friendship is about to be broken forever. Well,
and daisy crowns symbolize innocence, so a pretty important thing to note, especially with the next coming sequence, because it's basically Lauren's innocence is gone.
One thing I noticed is that even childhood Lauren, adult Lauren, she's not really capable of getting compliments. She chooses to ignore Dylan's compliment of her, or the fact that he likes her. She's not comfortable with that, even as a kid. So yeah, that's her personality. But oh boy, so that car, something to keep in mind. Suspicious car. And yeah, everything kind of also becomes dark. It's really, sad. She bumps her head and she's like, ugh. And she's like, Dylan, are you okay? And Dylan's kind of on top of her because he already has this little protective instinct. And he's like, what about you? Me, what about you? And she's like, my head just hurts. Hold on. My head just hurts a little. I'll be fine. Then she's like, I'll go get some help. And then as she tries to go up, she's like, oh, my ankle. And he's like, stop. I'm fine, Lauren. Stay still. Head injuries are dangerous. Let me see your ankle. Can you move it? I don't know. It hurts. And guess what, guys? I'm just saying, this is very reminiscent of something Kieran did just a few episodes ago for her. Bandaging her ankle and taking care of her ankle. Once again, is this Dylan's Kieran theory? I don't know, but I'm just saying. These two men in her life. And he's like, can you move it? I don't know. It hurts. It's already swelling up. Looks like a bad sprain. And we know he's interested in, being a doctor. So it makes sense that he is taking care of her like this. And he's like, how's your head? and he's so cute. His little face is like all concerned, and he's like, it's this little passion on his face. It's so very, very adorable. And he's like, can you follow my finger with your eyes? Good. Your pupils look even and you're tracking fine. So yeah, he knows what to do. Pretty good. You probably don't have a concussion, but your ankle. And she just laughs, and she finds this all very funny. And he's like, why are you laughing? It's just serious. You're injured. And she has this cute smile, and she's like, maybe you wouldn't make such a bad doctor after all. And he's like, has a surprise face. And she says, I'll be a police officer. And she's still smiling. And you can be the best doctor the city's ever seen. And then we can save people together. Oh.
And I was surprised actually that Lauren has wanted to be a police officer since she was a kid. I didn't realize, like, I thought her motivation for being a police officer was to take down the Phantom Scythe so she could avenge Dylan and figure out like what happened. But she's always had that desire.
I mean, it's probably gotten warped over time, like her motivation to be a police, but yeah, she grew up. I mean, she grew up, with money, so she will have a better view of the police than, let's say, Kieran. And, her uncle was police and was pretty successful as a police, even though not at this point. He does get promoted soon. So she grew up with good police influences in her life. So it's not that surprising that she would want to also be a police.
I do think she was always the kind of person who sought justice. We see that very much now in the present, where she gets like so inflamed and so angry whenever something does someone wrong. She has a very like black and white view of the world also. But I'm not surprised that she was like that when she was younger too. It's very, very strong in her personality.
So then she asks, and then we can save people together. How's that? And Dylan looks at her and says, okay, it's a promise. And then she responds,
so sad.
I know.
Like the saddest thing ever. This whole episode is meant to like make us cry. It just portrays like the exact opposite, because we know what's going to happen. And it's just like, it's like this innocence and purity and cuteness. And it's like everything that's so the opposite of what's in reality now.
And if you, again, coming back to the music, like the music really affected me in this episode. So this whole bit, like this whole track for all of this flashback, from the moment that Dylan enters her mind when he says Ren and it's all black and until a little bit down, further down, is so melancholic. And it's so, it like, if you're just looking at it, it looks really happy and innocent. I mean, if you take it out of the fact that this is a really sad memory, but like adding the music into it, it like really tinges everything. It's like a punch in my heart. It's so sad.
Mm-hmm. And she continues, but until then, I'd like to go talk to a real doctor. Can you ask your dad to come pick me up with his truck? And he says, okay, stay there. I'll be right back. Try not to miss me too much. Haha. And he's running down the street. Lauren's sitting there on the corner and sitting, holding her ankle. Her shoes are off. And then we have like a little bit of space, and she's like, why is he taking so long? So clearly there's been some time passing. And she just starts to get up because she wants to see what happens. And then boom, we have this giant explosion. And we see this giant ball of fire, just huge. And
this is where the music changes.
Right.
It goes to like fire crackling sounds and like a high pitched, as if her hearing had been damaged by the explosion.
Yep. It's like I actually like lost my hearing in this ear a couple of years ago, and I constantly have it in my head all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I hear it right now. I don't pay attention to it, but so it's funny. So I'm like, yes, I have that. I know that sound.
Mm-hmm. That's what we hear now that the explosion has happened. And Lauren looks at it and it zooms in on her eye, and you can see the fire reflection and the smoke and everything reflected in her eye. And people are screaming, people are running, it's chaos. We just see a panel of Lauren's mouth. She's like in shock, frozen in disbelief looking at it. Her hand, she's not moving. And then she starts walking while everyone is running away from the scene. She starts walking towards it, and she's like in this spotlight Like everyone around her doesn't really matter. She can't really remember who and what it looked like necessarily, but she remembers walking towards it and amongst all the chaos. As she's going forward, her ankle still hurts, so she stumbles, but then she picks herself up and starts running. And she's huffing and huffing, and it's still chaos, and there's fire crackling around, and there's all this black smoke. And it's just the yellow light of the flames and black smoke and rubble and rummage, and it's just like chaos.
Yeah, the panel of her walking towards the explosion, where it's like the spotlight on her, and it's only her. It is one of my favorite panels in LFPH. It's so lonely and just empty. And the way that this is, again, good character design. Lauren is she is the spotlight and she is the focus. Her yellow dress is contrasted to everything else going on, and everything behind her, you can barely make it out. It's just, she can't even focus on it. She's just walking towards the flames. You can barely see her face. Her hair is covering her face. And there's a lot of movement around her, but she herself just looks still.
And I just thought about it. Like Lauren has never worn a bright color since, as far as we know. She always dresses very somberly. And the yellow is usually a happy color, at least in our culture. It's interpreted as a very happy color, and light, joyous. And she hasn't worn anything like that since the accident. And her going towards the accident is also like, just shows you what kind of kid she was, which is what she is now. She's very strong. She's very courageous. She's fearless. And she always wants to get to the bottom of things. She cares very strongly about the people that are close to her. She's very, very loyal to her friends and will do a lot for them and isn't afraid to put herself in danger for the ones that she loves. And it's like instinct for her. She doesn't even have to think. It's all very instinctive. It's like just ingrained into her character. And she yells, "Dylan." And again, more people are running away while she's running there. And then she looks around, she's like, "Mr. Rosenthal." And she just looks at the floor and she sees a bunch of people dead under, well, probably dead under rubble. There's blood everywhere. It's like, it's horrible. I mean, and for a kid to be seeing this. And then she again is huffing. She says, "Dylan." And then she stops. And, both her feet are stopping on the ground. And she looks at the ground and she sees Dylan's hat. Oof. Oh boy.
Yeah, and she looks horrified.
Yeah. And at this moment, she remembers the lies that she heard. The next train will leave at 10:45. The years to come will be the brightest Art Hollis has ever known. And I think that was when, that moment, I think it's implied that even at that moment, she started feeling the guilt. Do you think so? Or do you think this is just later Lauren?
Yeah, because she realized that she knew something was off, but she wasn't able to do anything about it.
That's the thing, right? She was like 12, right? These are like, it's not like someone was saying like, "Oh, I'll never kill anyone in my life," and that was a lie. That's like a startling lie where you're like, something's off. It's like a weird lie, right? The lies that she heard, like, there's no reason for her to have given it any attention. It's not like a very exciting information kind of lies. So like the guilt that she is feeling over not paying attention to two random, obscure, like not really important lies, it's just, I feel bad for Laura. Like you don't have to do this. You don't have to feel responsible for that. She does. And she's thinking now, it's not their death you could have prevented. And it's in silver text, right? Because it's presumably Dylan speaking. And then she has this horrified look on her face, and she's flashing back to when she told Dylan to go get his dad. So she feels that she was the one who sent him to his death or disappearance, because she asked him to get his dad. And she's thinking that even back there. She starts, crying, sobbing, and she clutches her throat, which is kind of interesting because, Kieran choked her there, and it's I don't know if
Well,
it's
I think
the-
maybe, oh, okay. So I'm just making the connection now because the text up above, it's not their deaths that could have been prevented. That was something Kieran said earlier in this like weird memory flashback. So if she is starting to clutch her throat, it's like she's feeling more trapped by Kieran. She can feel him closing his grasp around her neck. Oh,
I always wait, hold up. I always thought like her grasping, like when her grasping her neck was like when you cry and your neck gets like kind of,
tight.
yeah, because she's reliving a memory. She's not, I don't think she's like, she's reliving a memory. She's not, at this point, she's not really tying it in like that much. Well, okay, sorry. I don't know how to word this, but I think like it's not their death you could have prevented. That's her mind here, right? Because she's re-experiencing this. So it's like a movie to her, and it's not their death you could have prevented. It's like someone's telling her that. But the movie itself is not affected by what the person is telling her. So I
I do
think,
think
yeah, I think
so.
she's just getting choked up here because she's crying.
Right. I do think maybe Sophie F deliberately had her go for her throat. Um, kind of as a drawback, callback for us. I do think that it accurately represents what she did back then as a natural response, but maybe it was a little intentional on Sophie F's part.
I think it's just body language when you cry, like normal. I don't think there's that much symbolism to it, which is ironic coming from me because I will find symbolism in anything.
And we have some drops, like teardrops, right? Falling through the blackness. It was so beautifully done. And again, the words, "I know you never meant to kill me." Oh. And we have this giant, giant scream, "Ah!" And that's Lauren just like yelling at the train station, sobbing, tears running down her face because of finding Dylan's hat. And then there's more blackness, and then we see present day Lauren lying on the floor crying. And again, we rarely see her cry. We saw her cry in episode like 44 when she was punching the bag. And now she's crying again. And she says, she thinks to herself, "I could have saved you, but it was too late. Dylan, I'm sorry." She closes her eyes. And then this is very, again, also very reminiscent of like literally like right now, where she was lying on the floor in the boxing area. She's in the alleyway, lying down, spread eagled, and thinking, "Is it selfish of me to wish I had never heard the lies? Because this feeling of guilt never stops haunting me," which is exactly what she was saying at the boxing place. And it's very sad. It's very sad. We feel so bad for Lauren.
And that's why it's a curse. Like she wouldn't be feeling this had she not had her ability, because she would have known that or she would have never blamed herself, because the reason she blames herself is partly because she sent him back there, right? But if she sent him back there, it still would have been an accident, right? But she sent him back there knowing something was wrong at the train station, or suspecting it, like overhearing something, or I don't know. She didn't exactly know that something was wrong, but she overheard information that was, a little sus. So
I blame
she
herself.
had
Even
suspicions and she sent him back there despite suspicions.
Well, I don't know that she she had suspicions after the fact, like she could connect the dots after the bombing happened, but um she didn't have those suspicions until after the bomb went off. Like she wasn't able to make sense of what the lies meant until after the bomb went off.
Yeah,
But
she didn't exactly know what those lines meant, but she did know that they did mean something. And although she didn't know what they meant, it was pretty ominous that like her expression when she overhears it is not, it's more uncomfortable than anything else. More uncertain.
more startled. Like I saw that as like, huh? Like, why am I hearing this? And what's this lie? And it's like a weird lie also. It didn't seem to make any sense, or like it didn't seem out of the ordinary. Like, no. That's
But
how.
they were lies, and that's why she noticed them.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, Fwoot, this is like her mind replaying things and her like movie track going through, but she's kind of twisted some of the things around. Like she blames herself for Dylan's death, but obviously she didn't set the bomb. She wasn't the person who made this plan to blow up the train station and kill so many people. Um, but she twisted it around so that she feels like she has responsibility in their death because she has this ability, which is like why the episode is called Cruel Curse. It just, I don't know, is it, she just, is she so self-absorbed that she just thinks that everything is her fault? I don't, that's might sound kind of mean, but it's like she has to, I don't know how else to put it. She's like, not everything is about you, Lauren, you know, and like it's not your fault.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
agree.
I think like, yeah, she puts too much pressure on herself. Like she was 12. She was 12, man. Like I don't expect a 12-year-old to stop a bombing,
Right.
a terrorist bombing. But yeah, she, I think for me, like my interpretation, she knew that something was off at least, right? Because of the lies. Her ability made her realize that something was off, but she didn't do anything about it. And you can't fault her for that. Like, I'm not mad at her for that. She was a child, like,
Who would
but
believe her anyway?
yeah. But Lauren
She
doesn't
wouldn't
see
even
it
know
like
who
that.
said it. She wouldn't even be able to find the people who said it anyway. Also,
Lauren doesn't see it like that though. So, because even though it's past, if she had done something, then things might have turned out differently. And I think that's what gets Lauren is that she could have taken this opportunity, but she didn't. And I think that's also what drives her to join Loon is opportunity. She is presented with an opportunity to actually, actively do something, but and so this time she takes it.
and, I actually think this character trait of Lauren's is generally a good character trait, but she takes it too far. Like Lauren has a lot of good character traits, and I feel like we point out her flaws a lot, but the truth is everything that all her flaws are really just like her good traits just taken too far. Like her stubbornness, her jumping into things impulsively, her emotion and her anger, they're all good traits. It's just extreme versions of them. So it ends up being bad. But like taking responsibility is a good trait. Being passionate about justice and right and wrong is a good trait. Being responsible is a good trait. Being loyal to your friends is a good trait. She just has very extreme personality. So she, takes things far, but like inherently they're come from a good place.
Yeah, it
So
just matters where she directs it to, right?
yeah. I mean, now we have this like kind of like negative image of Lauren, like a film, and her head throbs. So we can see she's experiencing like pain in her head, and she clutches her head and she's like, "Oh, my head."
And
And
sorry, real quick, I was wondering if she had specifically this flashback because it was a similar head injury that she experienced when she crashed into the pole. And so like the memory of hurting right there and having that same pain, like while she was unconscious, she thought about all this. Maybe.
Honestly, I always thought it was because um I feel like it was sort of like, just a spiral, the photograph, and the confrontation was fake, a letter to her parents' memories. And her parents had died, shortly after the Allendale train station tragedy. And that's what brought her back to that, especially with, the ankle injury and the car, all of those memories kind of just, fueled together into this one mess that was also needed to move along the plot so we could learn more about Lauren because they had been hinting to this for a while, right? This scene here um where Lauren's running through the fire and the wreckage, we saw this I think in the prologue. Like we've been waiting for this scene all season and now everything's coming together.
Yep. And all her memories are also coming back to her now when she's waking up, and she remembers Sake in the alley, and she's like, Sake. And suddenly, she is all alert, and she thinks, no. And she looks around her, right? Kind of like to see where Sake is, but she's all alone, and she wonders, did they just knock me out and leave me here? Why? And which, by the way, is my question too. Like, I don't believe Bella in last episode when she said, oh, to Sake's like, oh, you don't want to kill her, and she's like, oh, too many witnesses. I'm like, I don't believe you, Bella. I think there's more to it, especially given what happens later where there's a lot of witnesses. Bella kills someone. So I think that, I know there's a theory that somebody in the PS is keeping an eye on Lauren. Maybe it's that, but yeah, there was a reason that Lauren was not killed.
My personal theory, Mindy, is that Lauren is actually being manipulated. I'm not gonna go over it. You've heard it a million times. Yeah, the PS probably has some greater use for Lauren that is yet to be revealed. I mean, her ability is, who knows, one in how many. So
Massive meta twist. If that was true. She probably hate herself. Oh, well, we shall see. And she thinks that he's been missing for a year and then lost him again. I mean, like, as if she could even do anything, because the truth is, like, what was she planning on doing? Like, she's not allowed to go next to Sake. Like, there's nothing she could do. What was she planning on doing? Like, tracking him and like following him and finding information out? Like, but she's like, again, like, oh, it's my fault. I have to take responsibility. Like, I have to be, do something about it.
also, oh yeah, Mindy. Apparently, Lauren has a what's it called? It's like where she's not supposed to go near him. I can't remember what it's called.
Restraining order.
Yeah, she has a restraining order. So like, we find this out in season 2, and now I'm like, Lauren, what were you doing here? Like, girl, you have a restraining order. Slow down.
Very tempestuous. And she thinks to herself, he knew. And she flashes back to what he said. They were going to die anyway. We figured they would miss it. She thinks he knew, and I didn't even suspect it until I saw Anzal's picture. And then we see a headline, November 26th, 17, terrible car accident carries the Sinclairs and their drivers to their deaths, presumably. So we know the accident was, ATSD was 17th, right? So this is like 9 days later. So like,
17th or the 14th?
I forgot.
It's in the year XX17.
Okay.
So I think it's 14th.
Okay. So 12 days later. So like, this girl could not catch a break. Lost her best friend, hugely traumatizing accident, and then like less than 2 weeks later, her parents die. Whew, poor girl. And she thinks, I was a fool 10 years ago and nothing has changed. And that was our car. Thinking back to where he says the car was borrowed from a random rich family. Why was my parents' car on the site of the explosion that morning? How could I have moved on from their deaths? I shouldn't have. So instantly, right? We see it seems like she did move on from the deaths. The second she knows that there was foul play, she's like, I shouldn't have. I did something wrong. I was bad for forgetting about them. This is like crazy. Like, Lauren is like unreal. She has unrealistic expectations.
And she calls her 12-year-old self a fool. It's so sad. She was 12.
She couldn't even do quadratics, and she's going.
Oh yeah, this girl.
I can't do quadratics.
I don't even know what that is. Sorry. We got from quadratic. I know quadratic equation. That was a long time ago. Anyway, let us discuss things that we do understand. And she gets up and she says, I left them behind when their death needed justice. Oh, Lauren, I'm sorry, but this is so overly dramatic and like, it's just so unrealistic. Why are you like feeling guilty about something you literally found out like 5 minutes ago? Goodness gracious.
This, I think, goes back to the idea that she's not been able to mature. She was traumatized, and this is like her speaking from her trauma. Like, it does not make logical sense. It's not realistic, but she's just beating herself up, and she's just reliving all this trauma all over again from a different perspective now. A fresh new hell for her.
Lauren doesn't like feeling helpless, so she'd rather accept responsibility and feel guilt, like that she didn't do something, rather than accept I couldn't do anything, because that's a horrible feeling. And everyone experiences different things differently, but for someone like her, she hates feeling helpless. So she'd rather feel guilty than helpless. Which, yeah, is something I understand. I hate feeling helpless too. So that's, I do very much relate to Lauren in many ways. I was a lot like her when I was younger. Very, very, very tempestuous and like a little too much. Anyway, and then she is clutching her head and gets up. She's holding on to the wall for support, and she thinks, but I didn't do anything for them because I was so blind. And this harkens back to like the prologue where she talks about this long sentence about her being blind, the blindest of all. And she thinks, she like wrenches her teeth and just says, how could I have been so blind? How is it that even with this ability, I couldn't see any of this? I still couldn't do anything. Again, totally what she said in the prologue. And she's going out, clutching her head. I thought that it would make me less foolish, but in the end, and then she thinks back to like the murderer and the bodies and the lie, the next train will leave at 10:45. And the bodies that she ran over in the ATST and Dylan leaving. And she's crying again and trembling in the present. And she says, in the end, or thinks in the end, I am just as powerless. And she's looking up at the sky, everything's, white, which again is harking to what we were saying, how like she doesn't like to feel powerless. She thinks, if I was wrong about my parents' death, was I wrong about yours too, Dylan? And here we have like, this is again like the crux of it, right? Where she's like, everyone says he's dead, and like she's never been at peace. She doesn't know, but now, and she never accepted that he was dead either. Now I think she's willing to like look at it from a different perspective. I think she's starting to have thoughts about maybe he didn't just die in the accident. Maybe there was some foul play with him too. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of thinking, interpreting from her last line. What do you guys think?
Same here. That's what I see.
Oh, I thought she was questioning whether he was dead or not. Was I wrong about yours too? Are you actually alive?
I thought too the
And
first time, but I think because she never really accepted he was dead. So I think it can't be that, because she already didn't think he was dead.
but she also just found out about the car children, right? So she might be suspecting him to be one of the kids in the car. Because, in episode 76, she gets it confirmed, right? That Sandman knew one of the kids in the car.
I don't think it's come up yet as a 49 that there were kids
As
in
a
the car.
49, no, the kids in the car was last episode.
Yeah, Tim mentioned, yeah, there were kids in a car, and she's like, are the kids dead? And Tim said, yes, that was a lie. No, that was a lie. I don't know. That was a lie. That was like last episode.
I can't even remember if I recorded it. Sorry, guys, I'm tired. Sorry. I should know if I recorded it, and I can't even remember if we recorded that one. I think we did. Okay. Sorry, my memory fails.
No worries. But yeah, so she might be suspecting Dylan to be one of the car kids, which horrifies her later on in episode 76 when Sandman tells her that he did know one of the kids in the car. That only furthers her suspicions. And then in episode 84, where Kieran tells her that they're dead, she kind of relives mourning Dylan's death again, because she had this hope that he was alive, and it's now it's gone. It's only ran for like 8 episodes. And also, I think there's.
Didn't record 48 yet.
I also think there's a scene in 78 about her questioning everything about Dylan. I don't remember 76 though.
Well, I guess we'll get there.
Oh boy, so that's the end of this whole scene, which took up most of the episode, and it's sad. Fwoot, do you want to talk about your Mr. Rosenthal theory?
Actually, it's not my theory. It's just one of my favorite theories. It was created by Lynx, who is an amazing theorist and very she makes beautiful art as well. Um, Basically, she theorized that Mr. Rosenthal was the leader, like of the Phantom Scythe, and it's been a
Laura's
while
face.
since it's been a while since I read the theory, but it is such a good theory. You can find it on her Instagram. Like I think it's in her story highlights. So yeah, go check it out there because it's it's so much more elaborate than I could possibly even like summarize here. But basically, because Snapdragon is a flower and Mr. Rosenthal is also a florist, I think that was one of the main points. I actually don't remember it a lot of that because I have bad memory. But yeah, it also makes sense why if Dylan is one of the card children, because the apostle would have wanted um he would have the apostle or leader would have wanted, his kids safe, depending on if Rosenthal was what either. Also, Mr. Rosenthal would have come from a lower class, right? So it makes sense that he's more sympathetic to the Phantom Scythe, and he was close to the Sinclairs, who were apostles.
And then there was the fact that he like sent them. But the one thing that bothers me about this theory is that Mr. Rosenthal tells them, "Oh, we'll get cheesecake afterwards." So the truth is, so that's what I was thinking all along, and I was like, but and that wasn't a lie. Like he really did plan on getting them cheesecake. Then he gives them money to go to the bakery. So I'm wondering if his that's the truth fulfilled, where he's like, "Oh, that's why it wasn't a lie. Like here's the money for the bakery." I don't know.
I mean, like Kieran, the leader probably lives a normal life. So, like, Mr. Rosenthal probably didn't expect Dylan or Lauren to die. So I think he would have been down to take them out for cheesecake afterwards because it would have been traumatic and he won like because he would have suspected them to be living a normal life after this, even after the Allendale train station tragedy, if this theory is true, because he made sure that they wouldn't die by
Like
sending them
it,
away.
it
So
seems like even if he's the leader, he would have intended on disappearing, and he did disappear, right? Presumed dead, but like he would have faked his own disappearance. So like I don't think he would have taken them out for cheesecake afterwards if he was planning on
I
disappearing.
mean, that could also be attributed to how, like, I don't know, he was probably labeled as missing, seeing how Lauren couldn't find his body. So he could have, like, I don't know.
Well, Dylan, she couldn't find Dylan's body. We don't know. We weren't given
She
information on
didn't
Mr.
find
Rosen.
Mr. Rosenthal's body.
Is that stated later also?
I don't think it was ever specifically mentioned that his body was recovered. So it is possible that, like,
Actually,
hmm?
I think it's important. I think they specifically don't mention it.
Yeah.
Especially if we have the leader theory, then for sure they wouldn't tell us that.
Yeah.
That
So
just blew my mind a little bit. I went back and I was like, no, that can't be true because he said the train was going to leave in half an hour, but he didn't say that. He said the ceremony starts in half an hour. Oh my goodness.
I think it would be a great. I think it would be great because it's so like unexpected. Like because he plays a super minor role in the story, right? He's like completely a background figure, and you wouldn't think about it. Except we have these clever theorists, right? But like most people reading the story, like he's just a blip, and then you just move on, right? You would never suspect him. So that's why I think it's such a great theory. Yeah, yeah, I think it's good. Well, as I say, we'll find out in like 2 years. Okay. So now we go to the next part of the episode where Lauren is going to the APG and she's walking in, pushes open the door, walking down the hallway and opening the door to her office. And she sees Lila and she's like, "Oh, Lauren, did you grab a pastry from the break room yet?" And she's like, "I didn't." "Why are there pastries?"
And here we have another music cue. Once
Uh-huh.
Lauren enters the office and she's talking to her coworkers, the music changes. It's like dun 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 dun, that track. It goes to that.
Sam says, "Oh, here she is, the last member of our squad." Officer Lauren Sinclair. And Lauren's like kind of puzzled. She's like, why are you saying this? Like, you know my name. And then we have Kim, and she's like, Lauren, meet the newest addition to our precinct. And we see that someone's back and someone in suspenders, and then we see them turn slowly. We see their chin. We see their blue eyes with glasses. Kieran White. And then we have him in full, the man in the flesh, the man who just choked her suddenly in her workstation with her friends, looking all snazzy in a tame. He has this little low bun with a ribbon. He's wearing glasses. He's, dressing up nicely. And she says, starting today. And he just has this like very kind of grim or neutral expression on his face. And Lauren's like, her shocked face. Starting today, he's our new archivist. And we have the side by side, really, really, really well done close-ups of both of their faces. Lauren's shocked face and his like kind of resolute face where it's like, I know you know, and I'm just trying to be neutral and don't freak out and blow our cover. And I really hate the situation that I'm put in, but this is life and I'm here and I have to be here and I have to pretend this is all nothing. Like, oh, there's so much in his expression as well.
Yeah, and Lauren is not doing a very good job of being chill.
Sometimes I wish it was, yeah. I might just have to pull a belladonna on Kieran in this moment, because that is what I wanted to do a year ago when I read this episode for the first time. I wanted to beat Kieran up so badly, and I'm against physical violence, but sometimes,
Are you?
Sometimes murder is justified.
The last couple of episodes I've done with you, Fwoot, you've threatened physical violence against Kieran.
I wouldn't do it for anyone else. Mostly anyone else.
Also
There's some
Lady
other
Gang.
characters.
Oh, that's right.
But Kieran is special. He is very special.
Special. We all agree on that in different ways. But when I met my husband, special is also used as at least in our community, it's used as like when someone has special needs, right? Like if they're mentally handicapped, you say it's special. Like, so when I met my husband, I was like, oh, you're so special. And he was like, special.
The audacity of this man. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Can't accept compliments.
The audacity.
It's not him though. Now we understand what the directive was that he got in Great Chapel. What the last thing that he said, that was the letter said, which was instructions to be an archivist. Oh boy.
Yeah. When I read this for the first time, I literally saw the back of his head, right? And I was worried because Lila said there was a new person. I saw the hair like on his neck. I didn't even see like the side of his face. It was just his hair, and I was like, oh my god, I would go to jail for murder right now if I could actually kill him. Man, I hate it.
So funny. This side-by-side panel of their faces side by side like this, it reminds me of an episode, I don't remember what number it was, but when I think it was when they
15?
did their first, is it 15 when they
Or
interrogated?
no, it's 14 and 15 maybe.
But in that one where they're side by side, they're flip-flopped. Lauren's on the right, Kieran's on the left. I don't know if that has any significance. It just stood out to me like, oh, maybe because they're, I don't know, in a different situation now.
I mean, it is a beautiful panel, but Kieran not only had the audacity to show up to her work, like uninvited without any warning. I don't know how I would have told her, but still, like, he has the audacity to show up to her workplace, and then he has the audacity to show up looking like Harry Potter. Out of everyone, he looks like Harry Potter. I mean, if he's going to intrude on her personal life, he might as well look good while doing it.
Those look good.
Glasses are not it.
Pretty good.
He has to be
The suspenders. No, the suspenders with the glasses. He looks like a grandpa.
Could
He
never
looks
be
like
ugly.
he looks like he would have a cane and back problems.
He does, but he
Okay.
still looks good. He's a handsome grandpa. A handsome nerdy grandpa.
He looks
Hey,
like he
Kim
would
says
berate
he's
me for
handsome,
not getting
okay?
100 out of 100 on test.
I wanted to say something, but I forgot. So Kieran coming into her office.
Man, his face looks so punchable right now.
What is with that? I don't know what the slander is. Kieran is a saint. I don't know why you're mad.
I wouldn't go that far. You're both on the extremes.
Mindy.
What are you
I'm
saying about my baby?
gonna just reread like that episode right now. Yes, that is saint material.
Exactly.
Although maybe he's supposed to be like portrayed as innocent right now because his face is mostly in the light. Lauren's face is mostly in the dark in this last panel. Like her coworkers don't know anything about him. He's just like this innocent new hire. He's trying to portray himself as
Harmless.
yeah.
Very well said. True. Little harmless archivist. Oh, God. Oh. Yep. And that is the perfect shock for this episode to end the finale with. And they have this really cute little cartoon strip at the end of the episode. So we have Ephemeris and Sophism. It says co-creator, and Ephemeris is handing toilet paper rolls out of this truck. Now, was this also published at the time of the pandemic? Let me see. I think
Yes,
so.
I think this was published early April.
March 2020. Okay, March 30th, 2020. It's exactly at the start of the pandemic. And so obviously
because there was the toilet paper shortage. So that's just cultural fun fact. Yeah, and there's even in the creators note a mention of COVID-19. So
we see Ephemeris handing Sophism toilet paper, and she's like, y'all wonder who stole all the toilet papers, and she's throwing it over a cliff. And we have a bunch of people hanging onto a cliff, and the toilet paper goes right past them because they can't even get it because the authors are cruel, and they say we stole all of them just for you, which is a lie because they're throwing it over a cliff and everyone is hanging on for dear life. And she's like, aren't we thoughtful? And they're all trying to reach the toilet paper and they can't reach it and they're crying, and they're like, see in season 2, tears in my readers. So yes, they're cruel.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I will say though, that plot twist, it shook me for days. Like I literally like had to walk around my neighborhood just to attempt to process it. Like, did I process it? No, I did not. Was I in shock for the next week? Yes. And did I develop murderous intent? Yes, I did. Is that murderous intent still around? Yes.
No, there's plenty of recorded evidence that that murderous intent still exists.
You guys are gonna use this as blackmail, like you against me one day.
Mindy, you asked how long the break was. It looks like it was just a couple months.
Yeah, it was exactly.
I know I could just click ahead and see the next episodes, but like, yeah.
Yeah, I think this was published like April 14th for like non-fast pass. And then exactly 3 months later, it was season 2 came out on July 14th. So, very clean hiatus. But yeah, right now we're approaching the mid-season finale, and I know Soph is gonna take like a 1 or 2 week break. I really hope she takes an actual break, because in the hiatus between season 1 and 2, although the hiatus was 3 months, she spent most of it in pre-production for season 2. She only took 1 week off.
Oh boy.
I know, like, so she's been doing this for like 2 years, 3 years straight. Like, no, like, damn.
So, what do we have to say about this episode as a whole? I think we covered it pretty exhaustively, honestly, but if there's anything left to say, now's the time.
Kieran, derogatory. that is, yeah.
Okay, fine. Your words will be accepted to the record.
I also think like Dylan and Lauren, like their relationship is just so perfect in this episode. Like you really get a feel for what Lauren's childhood was like before all that tragedy. And like, I mean, she had it pretty well off. And again, the crown of Daisy's breaking symbolizes how she lost her innocence that day, right? Because of her trauma and stuff. And also it's just such a great way to end a season. Like it the cinematography in this um episode like from the panels of her looking down to her parents to her looking up at Kieran to how how her friendship with Dylan is framed and then her walking towards the explosion, like it is a beautiful episode. And then it gets ruined by Kieran's ugly face again at the end. But yeah, like the episode does a really good job of sort of expressing that emotion that Lauren was feeling, and it is a roller coaster of a ride. Like, first we're shocked and surprised by seeing not only her parents, but learning Dylan's name, because I'm pretty sure more than half the people reading this at the time were like, okay, that kid is going to come in. He's going to have blue eyes, right? Kieran's shade of blue eyes, and he's going to say his name is Kieran. So, but yeah, it's just, yeah, we didn't know his name at the time. I think Canvas readers knew his name, and then they had to wait a whole year and 6 months. But yeah, readers who found it as an original.
I just realized we never talked about his name, because we talked about like Kieran White's name. We didn't talk about Lauren's name, but I just looked up some meaning. So Dylan, the name Dylan is a Welsh name, which Kieran is also like Irish, so close enough. It means son of the sea or son of the wave or born of the ocean. Okay, I don't really see any meaning in that. But Rosenthal means Valley of Roses. So given that Mr. Rosenthal is a florist, that is led me to look up what is the meaning of a rose. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. And again, I'm not really a flower expert. I'm literally just top results on Google. But we know a rose is something that is fragrant, but also has thorns. So it's very possible that maybe this, if we want to go with the Mr. Rosenthal leader or apostle theory, it's something that seems sweet on the outside, but really is prickly as well. So maybe Mr. Rosenthal has like this, negative side undercurrent to him that we don't know about. Obviously, roses are a symbol of love, romance in our society. It says here that they can also mean secrecy or confidentiality, which would definitely fit in if we're going to go with that theory. And then definitely what happened to Dylan, even forget the dad theory, Dylan himself is a secret. We don't know what happened to him. So yeah, so that's that with the name.
Nice. I just want to give praises to Sophism again for the music in this episode. Like it really is so beautiful and so moving. And the track that is from the time Dylan shows up until the bombing is called You. So it's like with Dylan in mind, You, that whole track is. Oh, what's that Pixar movie about feelings? Inside or something?
Inside Out.
Inside Out, yeah. Where it makes me think of like the little girl, Riley, the main character, her happy memories before she moved were all tinted by sadness because she missed everybody. So like Lauren's memory of her childhood, what would have been normally like this really happy memory is all tinted with sadness. And the music really highlights that well. It like really hits at home. I know I said that already, but again, I just want to point it out because it was so moving. If you'll indulge me just a couple minutes, I know it's late, ladies, but I come from a music background, and I really, really love this track because it starts off with just the piano in kind of a triple meter, like a 6/8 time. Um, it's really slow, but you can kind of tell what the meter is. It's like 150 beats per minute ish, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The piano plays every 6 beat. And a lot of people think that triple meter is like it fits well with the human body because our heartbeat kind of is in triple meter. And so like if we think about it, 150 beats per minute, if that's Lauren's heartbeat, that's really fast. Right before Dylan calls her Ren, in that particular scene, she was starting to panic about all the people that died, and she felt responsible for all the people that died that Kieran killed, and the tower and the loon, the people that loon got arrested. But it's just a piano playing, and it's like it just plays every 6 beats. It's super grounding, and it encourages like the breath and the heart and the pulse to match up with it. And then when the singer comes in, Beatrice apparently is the person who's saying, it starts to slow down, which encourages the heart rate and the breath to slow down. And it's like it's just super grounding. And it really fits so well, so well, because it was like Lauren was starting to panic, but then Dylan came in, the music came in, and she's, instead of panicking, I mean, she was really sad, but she wasn't panicking anymore. And she could kind of think a little bit more clearly and have a coherent flashback instead of just chaos in her head.
Really cool. Yeah, that's something that like I don't have a music background, so that's really cool that you're able to bring that extra layer of meaning to it.
It's so beautiful. Just one other thought I had. So it's mostly piano and a singer, but sometimes strings come in as well. And the piano is playing the melody, the singer is singing the melody, and sometimes the strings play the melody as well. Sometimes the singer is just doing the melody by herself. But I was like, well, why is there a singer if it's just la las and da das? She's like la 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 da da, whatever. But you know, it would be distracting if she was singing words. But then if it's just la las and da das, why is she needed? Why isn't it just the piano and the strings? But it kind of sounds like it's Lauren's grief. It almost seems like Lauren is crying. Like this is supposed to be, there's no words for her grief. There's no words for how guilty she feels. She just is, this is her soul crying. And it's so sad. It really, really moved me.
Yeah, it's hard not to cry during this episode. Like really hard. Or hard to not want to cry.
Well, on that very positive note, we will leave y'all. No, that was great. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think you're correct. You know, I think that we missed out on music analysis, so I'm very happy that you brought that in. So thank you so much for both of you for coming on and doing this finale episode. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, as always.
Always a pleasure.
I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libris, Lily, Jenny, Haley, Maria, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Joe, Rochelle, Sasha, Talcos, Meg, Ann Rose, Priya, Alexa, Misty, Laura, Joanne, Patty, Jen, Imelda, Esther, I'm watching you, Taurus, Poppy Seed, Marie, Jen, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, D, and Kay. Your support is truly appreciated.